What's going on, dive buddies? Thanks for coming back as we are here with another video at Certified Scuba. It's been a minute since we've released a video because it's just so damn cold out and there's a lot of ice out there, so we kind of pull back on our diving a little bit, but it's a great time to talk about our topic of the day, which is all about the most important dive of the year. Oftentimes, divers can go a decent amount of time between dives. They can be seasonal divers or have to make changes as weather and temperatures change. You can also go on vacation to a beautiful, warm, and tropical location, but you're going from fresh to salt water. No matter what the circumstance though, all of these scenarios have one thing in common. You need to reacquaint yourself with your gear and getting comfortable in the water. That's why this video is all about the most important dive, or dives, every diver can take every year, the Get Right Dive. Yes, every year, every time you have a month-long break in between dives, every time you change a variable in your gear or thermal protection, or every time you change the water from fresh to salt, or vice versa, the Get Right Dive, as I term it, is the most important dive. Essentially, it is a dive which has no other goal than getting comfortable and ensuring that the variables that have changed aren't going to affect what you normally would do. The most common of these is the situation in which a diver has taken an ample amount of time off, whether it be months or years in between dives for whatever reason. Your nerves will be amped up as it's been a bit since you have practiced and honed your skills and ensured you're a comfortable diver. If this is you, then it doesn't hurt to stop into a local dive store and talk to the staff about getting some pool time to go over your in-water skills. Most will be gracious with their time and allow you to tag along with a current session they have. If it's been a substantially long period of time and you are hazy on some of the basics, most stores will offer a scuba skills update, which will place an instructor one-on-one with you, essentially in a one-night crash course of your skills and best practices to ensure you're ready and comfortable for whatever. From here, you're ready to hit the open water, whether it be in the tropics or your local dive spot. This is where you can really get working on your Get Right Dive. It's an opportunity to take your time, to really go over the setup of all of your equipment and your exposure gear. Get down your weighting and trim to ensure that you have the best buoyancy possible and you have gotten really acquainted with the environment around you. Take this opportunity to go over all of your skills with your dive buddy. Your mask clears, regulator retrievals, and emergency skills such as sharing air and manually inflating a BC on the surface. If you've bought new gear, whether it be a regulator, a BC, a mask, or a computer, or maybe even fins, these dives are perfect because you can get better acquainted with your gear in a no worries and no expectation environment. Don't have your first time you're using that new shiny regulator and BC be on a trip thousands of miles away a year after you've done your last dive. On that note, even if you're a seasoned and confident diver, if you're going to be going on a nice trip, it's still a really good idea to take some time and account for all the changes in the environment. We all know that saltwater is more dense than freshwater, which means we need to wear more weight to offset and achieve neutral buoyancy. It can be 4, 8, 10 pounds worth of difference depending on your exposure suit, and it can be absolutely stressful for a diver if they haven't had an opportunity to dip their toes in the water before hitting the boat in the early morning, the day after you arrive, only to jump in the water and find out you're not able to sink. Your nerves are already slightly pushed up, and in a new environment there could be a little chop or maybe a current, and the last thing that you want to have to do is to swim back towards the boat while shouting, "I need more weight." So try to carve out a little bit of time before hitting the boat to get acquainted with this new environment. Many dive locations you travel to can offer unlimited shore diving at no additional cost, and these are perfect opportunities to take that time and get acquainted with your environment. Okay, you're back at home and the dive season has moved along from the point where you have gone from a 3mm wetsuit to a 5 or 7. Or if you're diving dry, it's a time of year when you thicken up your thermal protection underneath your suit. Again, it's time for that get right dive. It's the time to test out all the variables that have changed and work on some of your basics so that they remain muscle memory. It is important to ensure that you can be comfortable with the proper weight before you do any dives of real consequence where you might feel out of your depth if you haven't accounted for these changes. The Get Right Dive easily allows you to acclimate to your surroundings and accommodate any changes you need to make on the fly. One good habit to practice is to write down your weighting in your dive logs and leave comments on if you are good enough for the circumstances. Now, I know some people might look at dive logs and say that they're a thing of the past or have no clue what I'm talking about with them, but they're the little piece of paper that divers that have been around for a while carry with them all the times, and they note their depth and their time and temperatures and said this was a really good dive. If you don't have one already, that's a good recommendation just to get a dive log so you can keep habit and practice writing that information down. Then when it comes time to follow up the next season, you can just simply look back at your last dive under similar conditions. Be prepared with this weight, but also be prepared to carry an extra 5 to 8 pounds in your dive flag just in case. As a seasoned diver, you will know by the end of your dive if nothing needs to change or if you need to lose a couple extra pounds. The opposite of this will obviously become evident at the start of a dive if you can't sink. The Get Right Dive is also the perfect dive whenever you change a piece of equipment, including things like tanks. If you're adding a pony tank, you're going from aluminum to steel, or you're changing the cubic feet in the tank, because there's a lot of changes that can happen between the buoyancy properties. It is never a good idea to go flying blind into a new circumstance and be wholly underprepared for what we are facing. As divers, we have practiced from our very first time in the water for repetition, for comfort, and consistency. These ideas should never leave you as a diver, can only increase your preparedness as time goes on. The Get Right Dive is the perfect dive for everyone to do multiple times a year and is important to set the tone for the coming dive season or trip, whatever it might be. Next time, go with no real goals or aspirations of the dive. Just do it to be comfortable and clear your head. You'll be amazed at how it can prepare you for the coming weeks or months. That's all for now here at Certified Scuba. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment below as we build our content off of what you ask for. But for now, we'll see you next time back on the dive boat, buddies.